Hey everybody, welcome back to Pun Fun, where we have fun with the puns. My name is Ryan, and we're here with the extraordinary, magical Sweeney Boo. Sweeney Boo, how do you do?
Gee, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
It's great having you on. I mean, I'm a huge fan, and well, I mean, not to brag, but we're gonna flex a few, archived pieces that we have from you as well. So if you're not familiar with Boo, I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't, but she's worked with Marvel, DC, Boom Studios, IDW, Archie Comics. She has her own books as well. So you have Eat and Love Yourself, Tales of Autumn as well. So that's more of a art book with kind of like sketches and renditions in there. We also have her more recent book, which is Over My Dead Body, which we'll get into details on how you can actually get your own copy via this episode as well. And maybe some, older works, for example, Glamourdises, if you guys are not even aware that this
You
even
have it.
exists.
That is crazy.
So we'll get into that in a couple of seconds. So without further ado, Sweeney Boo, you are local, so you live around Montreal, so we're from Montreal as well. But I know originally you're from elsewhere. Can you give us a bit of your cultural background, please?
Yeah, so I was born and grew up in the south of France, like just above Spain, in a very, very, very small town of like 3,000 people.
Oh, wow.
So I was craving moving to the city. I studied graphic design and I went to like high school for it. It was like kind of like a special high school.
Okay.
Because we were also like doing a lot of art. And
was it dedicated to just art?
Yeah, I mean it was like a bit of both, but it was definitely very artsy for like it was still like high school kind of.
And did it have like music and other arts, or is it just
it was divided
like
into like there was like people who were studying photography and then graphic design. So we were like that was just like the only thing that the school was doing. It was like a private school. Okay,
so it's like the Julianne of art, of like graphic designing. That's cool.
Exactly. So I got a degree in that, but like we learned like a ton of like art, which was like a really good base for me. And I was already very much into that, and I wanted to do animation at the time, and actually got into a school in Bordeaux. And 1 month before going to the school, I told my parents, I'm not going there. I don't want to I don't want to have debt. I'm just gonna try to do things on my own. And I don't know, like it was like probably 4 years after that I moved to Canada for a year, and I've been here for 7 years now.
Wow. Okay. Very, very cool. I mean, very gutsy too, to make that move. To say, you know what, I'm not following the normal route. I'm going to make it, on my own way. And we're kind of conditioned too that we think, because you finished school, you'll only that'll be the only way to make it out. But no, kudos to you for paving your way and for hitting so many milestones along the way. Really well done. So in the world of comics, as I've mentioned, you've done some work, for example, with Captain Marvel. You've done some for DC as well, so for the Joker and Batman and so on, and a lot for IDW as well. What was your comic book inspirations? Like, how did you get into this world to begin with?
So when I was studying graphic design, I met my boyfriend at the time, who was like a big comic book nerd, and I wasn't like really aware of it, I guess. Like, we all watched the movies, the Spider-Man movies growing up and all of that, but like I grew up more with the movies than the comic books, really. And he introduced me to the Spider-Man comics and Iron Man and all of that, and I really got into it. Wow. And when we moved to Bordeaux, they had their own like comic book shop, where we would get monthlies and stuff, which is like pretty rare in France. You definitely only have them in like big cities.
Okay, there wasn't like pull list and so on.
Exactly. So I had like my little box, and every month I was getting my comics, and it was really fun that way. And to just like once to get into comics, like I love bande dessinée in France, but like comics is just like there's so much more content and so much more art and stuff. So it was just like it was new horizons that I really loved it.
And then So now I see that obviously you had a professional desire to get into it from the get-go.
Mhm.
However, I'm sure you had done your sketches and you're into art to begin with. When did you know that this was something that was no longer a hobby for you, but it was something that you wanted to do professionally?
I think pretty early on, I knew that art was what I wanted to do. I
Okay.
didn't like probably around like 14, 15. I didn't really know the extent of it yet.
Right.
Like I was really into fashion, so maybe like fashion design and all of that. So I just knew that art was like my thing.
Okay.
Um, I wasn't good in school, and
Okay.
art was really the only thing that I was like thriving at, kind of.
No, and it makes again the whole institution thing where we're conditioned to understand that only one way is being good at school. But if you're amazing at art, you have a talent. Why not have something that can be able to showcase it? And I'm glad that you're able to go to that school where they really put emphasis and capitalize on the fact that there are people that are more creative on that end than just people that can know numbers and writing or memorizing stuff from books. So well done.
Exactly.
Yep.
No, it's you see, it's something that I have like a tough time with like the school system, and still nowadays I'm just like ugh, because like at the time they would keep telling me like I would not make it because basically I wasn't like good at math or whatever. But I'm like, it's not math, it's just
No, exactly.
art. I mean, like it takes math, but like chill out.
So we're digging into the past. This was something that we were able to dig up, and we were
Hmm.
so it was so odd how we landed on this to begin with. And it apparently, so you had like your own Kickstarter. So this was like pre-Kickstarter even. It wasn't on a Kickstarter. It was another platform.
Yeah.
And it came along with an array of things as well. There was one item I wasn't sure existed or did not exist. It said that there was a what's it called?
Keychain.
Oh, there's a keychain. No, a rolling pin. So it said that
Oh,
there was a rolling pin exclusive to this, and I was like,
there
I've never seen
was.
it. Oh, really?
That is true.
That's
There were
crazy.
keychains too. They're like homemade. I made like
Oh,
200 of
wow.
them. It was crazy. I don't know why I did that.
No, but it's amazing because like now for people that have grown to love your art, finding these kind of gems, it's like it's great to see what you were up to, but also you can feel like all of this was made like straight from the heart. I mean, everything else obviously straight from the heart, but this you can see it was something very close to you as well. So it was very fun. From all the recipes in here, and by the way, to get a bank of recipes and then have like a piece of art for each one. So I'm going to show a bit of like, oops, I had to land on that page as well, but kind of, the style and
The
the,
style is so different. It's crazy. My
actually, I
art
want
was
to get,
so weird.
that's actually something that I want to bring up because our show is about art process. How did you
Yeah.
go from this design to, for example, now Eat and Love Yourself, where there is definitely, if someone were to say, oh, I can tell, what Sweeney Boo's art right away. You think of Over My Dead Body, Eat and Love Yourself, and the more recent stuff. But when I saw this, I was like, wait, is it? And then there was your name, and I was like, oh damn, there really was a
Yeah.
transition. So how did you make that stylistic transition?
Um, you know, it's funny because at the time I didn't really see how like strange it was because
Okay.
it feels like a bit of like strange. Like my shapes were kind of like very exaggerated in like crazy
Right.
way, and it
Here, I'll
went
try to.
crazier than that at some point. And not to fall too
Like,
deep into like things, yeah.
yeah.
But I was sick at the time. I had an eating disorder, which was like really kind of like changing the way I was seeing things and bodies, and I feel like that went into my art a
Okay.
little,
Yeah.
which is something that I've like analyzed later on. So I feel
Wow.
like maybe it was my own way of like trying to understand that kind of.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm getting like a little deep into things, but I think that's
No,
what it
no, that's
was.
yeah. No, that it's a great description because yeah, if this is your way, not necessarily therapeutical, but it's kind of like they'll say sometimes, hey, how do you feel? Write it down on a page. I feel maybe
Hmm.
that's what you did. You drew it out, and then yeah, it's again, it's so cartoony, and it's so, like you said, disproportional everywhere and in
Yeah.
places, and you're like, oh, there is definitely a style. You can see that you've created a style and you kept it in that time. But then going into your more recent stuff, the proportions have changed and it's less cartoony. It's more realistic. It's more from unrealistic to more realistic. There's definitely a shift, which I thought was great.
It's kind of like I went to like destructuring everything
Yeah.
to restructuring it. This like it's like I've learned to draw in this like reverse way kind of. I don't know. It's really weird because which is funny because my rendering it's definitely more like it's kind of like similar to what I kind of do now. So like my rendering kind of came back. I don't know, but it's really interesting and kind of weird in the same way.
Yeah.
It's 10 years old. Jesus.
Oh my God, 10 years old. That's wow. And I'm glad we were able to get into this because, again, it was a gem hidden in the rough. I absolutely love this book because of the way it is and it's quirky and it's so different.
I appreciate it so much. Gee.
Do you have a favorite recipe amongst these that were in here, if you remember any of them?
There's one that I remember that I enjoyed drawing quite a bit. I think there's a lemon pie.
Yeah, I think
in there.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I'm about to find it, but I will bring it up, and you guys will see what we're talking about. But yes, there is a lemon pie as well.
Because I was like trying the recipes at the same time I was like
no way.
The book. Yeah. Tons of them were a fail because I'm terrible at baking.
Okay.
I'm alright at cooking, but I remember actually succeeded at doing this like lemon pie, and I enjoyed drawing it too. So yeah.
That's so cool. And well, actually, that brings us to a great transition, which is eat and love yourself.
Yeah.
Which is a hidden gem again. Well, I mean, no, this was a hidden gem in the sense that like I would have never thought this even existed. This one existed, and I just was like, oh, is this something that I want to get into? I read it, and I love it. And what's great is that well, as you've seen, I also have a girlfriend who's a big fan as well. She was dressed up as Mindy.
Yes, it was amazing.
And it really an emotional level got to her, so it really spoke to her, page after page. It really, she was able to identify herself with Mindy, so she found it fitting to only dress up as Mindy. That being said, and this was actually one of her questions, is so I know you mentioned the disorder earlier on for the Glamourdises. The question was actually, how did you know so much and in depth of how someone with these kind of emotions and thoughts would bring it up? Because she's like, there's no way she can just do research online and figure how someone would feel like this. And then I guess you kind of gave me your answer earlier on. But what brought you to say, you know what, I needed to bring this book to life?
I needed to let it out, really. I remember when I was like really deep into like my sickness, and I always try to look at content to find like a bit of like comfort, and outside of like self-help books,
right,
that were very like methodical of like here is what an eating disorder is or whatever, this like feeling of like when you go on, I don't know, like on Reddit or whatever, and you read people who have like the same experience as you and stuff like that. I wanted to see that, but with like my books, my comic books, I wanted to see a character that maybe I could identify with, or just like not feel so alone or something.
Right.
And so when it came down to it, I was just like, maybe in the end it can just like bring that to someone else to just comfort, because it's not offering necessarily a solution or whatsoever. Even
it's
maybe
a lot of empathy, a lot of
exactly. But like everybody's experience with their own eating disorder is like different. But I was just hoping that maybe, one person, luckily, you're telling me that it happened. I guess so. I just, depending on like the way everybody grew up, like my parents, if you don't have like a visible wound like on you, they wouldn't be like, oh, I understand that you have something wrong. So I think at the time it was also like maybe if someone has someone in their family who's dealing also with something like that, then maybe it can like offer them a bit of like, oh, maybe I understand. Kind of just a glimpse of like what it can happen in our minds.
No, absolutely. And for more of the process into this, how do you build something? Because obviously there's the writing,
Mhm.
there's also the arts. You do both, right? This is completely your work. How do you how do you manage or methodically build something um, so well rounded and at the same time make it work from beginning to end?
I have a weird way of working in like my stories don't come first, my character does.
Okay.
Because I do sketch a lot for myself and stuff like that,
Hmm.
to relax. And one day I just drew Mindy and I was just like, man, like it's her and like I have to do something with her. And before it came down to just being me, we were two on this book. There was someone,
Okay.
there was a writer attached to it, and who was way more, he was in the industry. He's like in the Bundesliga industry.
Okay.
So he was definitely very helpful, and I was able to like share my story, and we were like able to like go with that. It took us some time because we like again, I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
I was in my early 20s. I definitely
Wow.
learned a lot. And we pitched it to editors and they were like, eh. So we did a
Wow.
Kickstarter, but
Yeah.
then I had a day job, so I was doing that on my weekends. And then it's just like, but I don't know, like 4 or 5 years later, here it is, and like it's out and it's with someone and it's like in color and all of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great accomplishment to have, not just a comic book, because some people will just do like let's say a comic book which has roughly 8 to 15 pages, but you
Hmm.
have a full-on graphic novel here, which is,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's a big, you know, obstacle to overcome for sure, or not obstacle. It's definitely a
It can be.
yeah, okay. And what's
It's an
fun
obstacle that you give yourself kind of like, oh well, there you go. You gotta do it now.
So if you are looking for a good read, you definitely want to check it out. You can actually go at your local bookstore and you may be able to find it. However, this version here was a Kickstarter version, so unfortunately that one you may only be able to maybe find it on eBay. Um,
Maybe. I'm
but
curious. Maybe.
but I'd highly doubt it. I mean, whoever actually got this book, I'm pretty sure they're keeping it within their treasure trove. That being said, is talking about bookstores. I actually went to the bookstore recently to pick up your
Mhm.
recent book, which is Over My Dead Body. So this right over here.
Yes.
Um, and it is insane. It is crazy. Like the color, the way you, it is insane. It is like you feel the fall, like especially with the coldness, coming through, and you can definitely feel the
Yeah.
spookiness coming in. But this was great. This from page one to the end, you felt it's a whole new world for sure. But the
Mhm.
palette, the colors, very into the autumn. When I was going to pick it up, I wasn't sure if this was going to be like another Harry Potter-ish kind of book.
Yeah.
The book was within the teens section, and then I was reading it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of darker than I would expect for teens. But it reads really well, and I would say even as a teen or even as an adult, you'll enjoy it because yeah, it's how do I say, it's like Harry Potter but on crack. It really goes
I love
beyond
that.
what you would think it would be on. So for you, having somebody to read, like go into this, what would you say was your favorite part of this book?
Um, Definitely the spookier parts.
Right.
Because going into creating the book, what I wanted to do was something horror, like, because I love drawing very colorful and very like round shapes and stuff, but I thought it
Right.
would be like a nice like contrast. So getting to do those parts was definitely out of my comfort zone, but like in a good way.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's there's one. So again, going through it, I think again one of my favorite scenes through your book was when she kind of drifts away in her bath, and it's very dark, and there's like these vines that start growing, and she's kind of like, what's going on. And yeah, it's definitely had a more of a thriller feel to certain degrees, but yeah, very horror, as you said. Kind of secrets. Where did you get the inspiration for those? Like, where would you find that very nicely sourced kind of Wicca, but at the same time it's not too extreme where like people are going into the Wicca world?
Well, I love witchcraft. I've always been obsessed with witchcraft. So I consume every witchcraft content I can.
Okay.
But I have to admit that like going into writing a story, it might sound weird or whatever, but like once you start with something, like there's something that flows really
Okay.
easily. So a lot of like those secrets for that way of sometimes just like, oh, I have to connect this like point A to B. What am I gonna do?
Right.
Sometimes you hit a wall, and sometimes you just get an answer that way. So, and also like playing with like people
Right.
and connections that way is definitely a bit easier. It's really hard to build a world. So I
Oh, I
didn't
can
want to go
imagine.
too crazy at first because it's like the first time that I'm actually writing totally on my own. And I
Wow.
didn't want to like, like just like do something that was like way too hard because it was definitely hard already.
Wow.
So just like sticking within what I had and working with that. And it actually, it's like playing chess or whatever. Kind of like just like,
You go
yeah,
move by move. Yeah,
yeah,
that it's
kind of.
absolutely. Giving it a good read a first time, definitely you'll get to enjoy the art and appreciate the art. Reading it a second time, that's where you kind of get to start diving into the deeper themes, kind of understanding, where these characters are going, who is over their dead body. And yeah, first time's a good read, second time's the best.
Oh man, I appreciate it. I appreciate when like, like understanding like layers of things and like you said, dragons and all that. I love fantasy, but
Mhm.
like I guess with you already had that with like even love yourself. I love when things have like a deeper meaning, and I love the emotional aspect of like witchcraft or like the like energy,
Right.
part of it more than like the flamboyant like magic or
Right.
whatever. Even though
Exactly,
it's
with the
it's
wands and
cool
all that.
sometimes.
Yeah, and
But yeah.
and absolutely, even seeing the rituals, like that, I wasn't expecting rituals. I thought it was just going to be like one this and one that, but then having them actually perform, well, even straight from the get-go, having them or having her do a ceremony, I was like, oh, okay. And it really sets the mood. Like, it definitely is um an animal of its own, so very fun to read.
I
um
appreciate it. Thank you.
Speaking of Over My Dead Body, well, not my dead body, but we are going to have a crazy contest. So this one here is going to have a Over My Dead Body signed by Sweeney Boo. And yeah, it'll be mailed and shipped to you. I'm going to have all the details for that contest in the comments below to how to enter, how do you qualify. And then we will, also have a date of when we're going to draw our winner. You know what? Just because it's so fitting, we may do the draw on Halloween. So on
Ooh.
the 31st of October, what a way to celebrate, um, you know, over dead bodies, right? So that's when the draw is gonna be done, for your chance to win your very own copy. And if you don't want to chance it, or you want a second issue, you definitely want to go into your local comic book store, local bookstore, and grab a copy of your own. Um, this also being said, I know like you love the world of magic. I mean,
Mhm.
having done work for Sabrina the Teenage Witch must have been a dream come true. Even seeing it come to life via Netflix. Well, what was your experience? How like when you heard that it was picked up? I can only imagine the emotions that were going through your head when that moment came.
Um, because we all grew up with like Sabrina the Teenage Witch and all
Of
that. So it was
course,
like
TGIF.
so,
Yeah.
and like when the show came out, I was obsessed with it,
Wow.
and I remember starting to do covers at the time, and like dreaming to maybe do a cover for like Sabrina one day, and like to like right now being able to do my own witchcraft story is like it's like just one goal after another. It's pretty amazing.
That is so cool. And what I've noticed, and I don't know if this is obviously it's within your style. So when I did read, when I did go through Les Glamourdises, and also when I was reading into Eat and Love Yourself. So for example, the chocolate bar kind of stays similar. So I don't know if you've noticed, but you kind of like kept the same format, even the angle. And then in Over My Dead Body, there's some elements that you kind of see within Eat and Love Yourself. So again, it could be just stylized. But what I want to know, are you creating like a Sweeneyverse where like you having all these characters?
I'm not. If I am, I'm not doing it on purpose.
Well, there you go. So that's definitely a tinfoil hat theory there. But yeah, I thought this was something that was going on. I was just like, wait, what? But yeah, I mean, food for thought.
I'll hide like Mindy stuff in the second book, and like
oh, there's a second book. That's so cool.
There is.
And will there be also a Eat and Love Yourself as well, or is it going to be a second Over My Dead Body?
A second Over My Dead Body.
Very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
For Eat and Love Yourself, I wanted to keep it like as a open ending.
Okay.
For people.
Very, very cool. Yeah, that is actually a great idea. Sometimes you just need to keep a classic. And so do we have any insights for Over My Dead Body 2?
Not yet. I'm writing it. That's what I can say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, of course. I mean, this one just came out, right? No, of course.
Yeah. But you know, it's usually like all I can say is that there's a second coming, and I'm excited about it.
Oh, we're excited about that too. Any other projects that you have lined up that you can tell us about?
Nothing that I can talk about.
Oh, okay.
There's definitely cool stuff happening. This is the thing about like being under NDA. There's a bunch of things that I can talk about.
No, don't worry. We won't get you in trouble. That's for sure. And also, I mean, we have had a few covers for the Captain Marvel. Were able to watch the movie with Libra? Yeah. What did you think of it?
I loved it. I'm a sucker for like superhero movies.
Oh, wow.
I know that a lot of people have a lot of like criticizing to do about it, but like I take it as it is. It's so much fun. I remember going to see it in theaters, and I think it was the same month that I knew I was going to work on Captain Marvel.
Wow.
And it was like I saw the movie, and then I got the gig like a month and a half after, so it was like it was like mind blowing.
Oh man, I can imagine. Wow.
Oh,
that's cool.
I still can't. Like it's been 4 years, but yeah.
And were able to see Miss Marvel, the more recent one?
Oh yeah, loved it too.
And I guess you're gonna see the Marvels at some point when it does come out, I believe next year.
I see them all.
Oh, you see them all. So you're really into the MCU.
Oh yeah. My partner and I, we usually go on like the day it comes out. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
We're nerds a little bit.
No, we do the same.
Way.
We've not to brag, but we've once rented a full row for the premiere because we're just like so many of us, and we're like, you know what? If we're gonna do it big, and we're just like a gang of nerds.
That's so awesome.
Maybe we can work something out. Anyways,
yeah, I would love to. That would be great.
That'd be so cool. Okay, so now I know my Sweeneyverse is a bust.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Where else can we find your work actually? Because I've met you at conventions. I've seen you sometimes throw a Kickstarter here and there. But where else can we find your work?
I'm pretty much everywhere on social media at Sweeney Boo. Definitely on like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm trying out TikTok. I feel very old. I'm trying it, but I'm there a little bit. But yeah, pretty much that. I'm going to be at a bunch of like cons until the end of the year. I'll be in New York next month.
Oh wow!
And
NYCC, the big one.
Yeah, one of my favorite.
Really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I haven't been.
Amazing.
It's one of definitely a bucket list item. That one in San Diego, but kudos to you. I mean, it's a huge show. I think it's the second biggest show ever. I think amongst the comic.
Yeah, it is big. I've never done San Diego, but San Diego is definitely like more entertainment. Where I feel like New York is very like comic book and a lot of
artist oriented. Very cool.
Exactly.
Maybe that would be the better investment then. on my
I
behalf. But yeah,
I'd say like yeah, definitely go. You won't regret it. It's a great show.
awesome. As you've mentioned, we can find you on all those social platforms,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have a podcast of your own, if I'm not mistaken.
I do. I mean,
And
yeah.
can you spell that out for us?
Yes, it's called Spill Your Guts. It's with my co-host Sue Lee, and we have 9 episodes right now. Our
cool.
second season, if I can like call it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's coming out on October 3rd. We talk about being freelance and dealing with our mental health.
There you go. And
Yeah.
where are they able to find this podcast of yours?
I think we're pretty much everywhere on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, just like I guess like people say wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you'll be able to find all of our social media platforms on the description below. We're also going to put a little link for the podcast as well. So having all those great experiences and, you know, hitting so many milestones, as we've mentioned before, I mean, having stuff that you've published be, you know, now cinematic, or if not being on the smaller screen, like Netflix, for example, having aspiring artists go into the biz, or you know, people that have been in the biz for so long, what are Sweeney Boo's words of wisdom?
It's not definitely like being good at art that is the most important. It's to be dedicated and stubborn.
Okay.
Yeah. And also because like you're always, if you want to be an artist, you're always gonna grow, you're always gonna get better at it. And if it's something that I would have known like before, it's just like really enjoy the process, because you're always going to learn and it's always going to be fun, and you gotta enjoy it. Yeah.
Awesome. There you go, guys. And before we end things off, we usually embarrass our guest with one last request, which is, can you leave us with a pun?
Oh my god. Oh. English is not my first language. Jesus, I have no idea.
It could be anything. I mean, I know you're very into cats. It can be, you know, a perfect way to end, you know, our show. Do you have maybe a spooky, witchy, Wicca type pun?
I'm gonna steal something that I think Sam Maggs wrote in one of our titles for Captain Marvel, because the first one was about flurkins, and she said it was going to be catastrophic.
There you go. Hey, so rarely do we get artists to come on and actually nail it on the get-go. Well done.
Jesus, it was terrible.
So there you have it, folks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to hit that like button. Again, if you're new to the channel, you want to definitely hit that subscribe button. This way you stay on top every time we have either local artists or independent artists or really cool artists like Sweeney Boo right here. Speaking of which, don't forget to check out the contest rules on how to win this beautiful book. And lastly, is there any last words you'd like to add before we go?
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Thank you for coming on, and we definitely wish you much success along the road. We'll definitely have other projects oriented stuff, such as, you know, interviews with you along the way. Take it easy, guys.